Welcome everyone to Business Insights on Monday. Yes, it is. It's the 1st of February already. Business Insights is a very exciting webinar. Industry thought leaders for business owners who simply want to be in the know about the latest and most significant news and initiatives in the Australian business landscape that impact how they do business. Our panel of advisors aim to inform, educate and provide strategic insights to the changes in the economic, legislative and financial landscapes that affect small business. We aim to guide our viewers to navigate business challenges through COVID-19 and beyond. Let's now meet our panel of industry thought leaders. First of all, we've got Lisa Garrido from Enigma HR.
Happy February, everybody. Good morning. Glad to be here today.
Next, we've got Ian McLaughlin from Imperium Accounting and Tax.
Thanks very much, Adam. I just cannot believe that it is the 1st of February. I'm still trying to get my head around that, but here we are.
We're firing. Third is Sam Garashi from MoneyClip Private Wealth.
Thanks, Adam. It's all happening on my side of the things, and I look forward to sharing that with you later.
And of course, I'm Adam from Biz Doctor. Just before we get stuck into it, I just want to let our viewers know that the expressions of views and opinions that are passed on today are only designed for education. They're not designed for your personal circumstances and shouldn't be taken as advice. If you need that specific advice, please reach out to our panel members and I'm sure they can help you out during the course of the week. Well, let's get into it. It's the 1st of February. Lisa Garrido, the Pocket Rocket, over to you.
Oh my gosh, I'm the first one. All right, okay. So for our viewers, finally, the formulation, Pfizer vaccine formulation has been given full approval, but will it be mandatory? Is the question that all employers and of course all individuals are asking at the moment. So as we've all heard from the news, it's been finally approved by the Australia's medical regulator and has passed rigorous standards for safety, quality and efficacy. So unlike the US and the UK, however, which only gave emergency approval, Australia has signed off on the use of Pfizer's formulation after the TGA has completed a full intensive review of the clinical trials. So this really bears to question the compulsory nature of vaccination, which has caused a lot of discussion, a lot of talk within HR leaders and definitely with employers. Now, the government, however, as we know, has already made it clear that it doesn't mean that we are going to be less vigilant as employers with observing the health protocols and relying only on the vaccine to curb any future virus transmission. So basically, it doesn't mean that the masks will disappear. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be practicing COVID safety plans and we shouldn't be keeping social distancing as well as hygiene. And that is very clear as a message that I would like to impart today to all employers. So the restrictions will obviously be eased gradually, but it is anticipated that it will happen over a longer period of time and certainly during the course of the year. So I go back to the question, will vaccination be compulsory? So the discussions obviously have been very carefully considered with certain sectors. And the sectors that have been highlighted have been the hotel sectors or the hospitality sector and definitely aged care staff. So obviously the first group, the hotel staff, requires inoculation almost immediately because they're exposed to international travelers who are required to self-isolate in designated hotels. And of course, the second group for the aged care, because of their close contact with the elderly patients who are obviously clearly a very vulnerable target of this virus. So what I'd like to show you guys today is really more how we will be receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint slide and go through that briefly. It's purely informational. I can also post this on our Facebook and LinkedIn page. So I'm going to share that slide now, if you bear with me. All right, here we go. If our panelists can make sure that they see this, thumbs up. All right. So phase 1 of vaccination is for Australians aged 16 and above, following 2 phases. Phase 1A, up to 1.4 million doses is going to be released. It's for quarantine and border workers, frontline healthcare workers in groups of prioritization, aged care and disability care staff, aged care and disability care residents. Phase 1B, up to 14.8 million doses, is the elderly adults aged 80 years and over, and then followed by 70 to 79, other healthcare workers, and then Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders over 55 years old, younger adults with an underlying medical condition and disability, and critical and high-risk workers in defense, police, fire, emergency services, and meat processing. Phase 2, which is about 15.8 million doses, adults aged 60 to 69, adults aged 50 to 59, woohoo, here we go. Without disclosing my age, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people 18 to 54, and other critical and high-risk workers. Then the phase 2B, which is 16 million doses, balance of the adult population, catch up of any unvaccinated Australians from previous phases. Finally, phase 3, the rest of Australians below 16, if recommended. Right. So as I'm pointing this out clearly to show that the vaccination process is it's phase-based and therefore will take time. So as employers, we still need to be absolutely vigilant more than ever, because guess what? We are still responsible for the workplace health and safety measures of all the people that we have due care under. So when will the vaccinations begin? First batch is in late February. How many doses will be administered? With the Pfizer formulation, you will receive 2 doses with an interval of at least 21 days. Right. So next week, what I'd like to discuss is expand on this and look at how does it impact employers specifically. So that'll be my topic for next week. I'll post this on our Facebook page and our LinkedIn page. And that's it for me, Adam.
Well done, Lisa. I find it remarkable that you could even think that you're older than 50. That's just not on. I don't understand that whatsoever. Hey,
Thanks.
can you just maybe stop sharing that screen? That'd be great. And we're going to move now on to the numbers man, Mr. McLaughlin. As you've just identified, it's the 1st of February already. I'm sure there's some deadlines that people need to be aware of. So what's the latest and greatest from you?
Yeah, thanks very much, Adam. Absolutely. So it is the 1st of February, and what is significant about this date is that declarations are now open for qualifying businesses to receive their JobKeeper payments for the month of January 2021. So businesses have until the 14th of February to lodge the declarations with the ATO in order to be paid for the month of January. So a reminder that in order to qualify for these payments, the ATO needs to be satisfied that the business had a drop in turnover of 30% or more when comparing their December 2019 turnover reported in their BAS to their turnover reported in their December 2020 BAS. So with the tranche that we've just finished on, which was the first part of the extension, that was based on the September BAS. So now you do need to retest in order to be paid for the month of January. So the ATO can be satisfied in 2 ways that the business qualifies with that significant decline in turnover. So the first way is that I mentioned, after you lodge your December 2020 BAS, the ATO will automatically compare this to the figures reported in your 2019 BAS, and they will do the calculation on their end. And they will basically say that, yes, you do or you don't qualify for JobKeeper, the extension. The second way you can do it is you can make an online declaration via the ATO website and declare that your turnover does in fact meet that 30% or more decline in turnover when you compare your December 2020 numbers to your December 2019 numbers. Now, option 2 might work for businesses that are not yet ready to lodge their December 2020 BAS. But a reminder that the December 2020 BAS is not due and payable until the 2nd of March 2021. So if you are going to lodge your BAS after the 14th of February, then you will need to use option 2, where you go online and you make the declaration that you do satisfy that decline in turnover test. So let's have a look at the major difference between this new phase of JobKeeper that we're now in compared to the one that we've just come off. So the major difference is that payment has dropped from $1,200 a fortnight to $1,000 per fortnight for eligible employees and eligible business participants on the full rate. And it's dropped from $750 a fortnight to $650 a fortnight for eligible employees and eligible business participants on the partial rate. So just a quick recap of what those were. So the full rate, that is for employees and eligible business participants. So just a reminder that eligible business participant can be a director in a company, a beneficiary of a trust, or a partner in a partnership that isn't actually paid through the payroll. So as long as they were engaged actively in the business for more than an average of 20 hours per week in the month of February 2020, then they will qualify on that full rate of $1,000. If they were less than the average of 20 hours per week, then they will qualify under that partial rate of $650 a fortnight. Now, I just want to talk about something that you may have heard about over the weekend. So the ATO has been very quick this morning to point out that some media reports were purporting that the JobKeeper program had fallen victim to fraudulent payouts, and that these claims are incorrect. So if you've read about fictitious employees and equally fictitious or deceased workers receiving JobKeeper payments, the ATO is reassuring everyone that this has definitely not been the case. And they want to reassure everyone of the effectiveness of the JobKeeper program, and managing fraud has been looked at by the Australian National Audit Office. So that definitely has not been the case, where people that have been deceased have been receiving JobKeeper, or fictitious businesses and fictitious employees. So just a reminder of those key dates. So 14th of February is when you have until to lodge your January declarations. And then the 2nd of March is when the December BASs are due. If you're not going to lodge your BAS by the 14th of February, you do have the option of going online and submitting a declaration that your turnover does in fact meet the decline in turnover test. So that's it from me today, Adam. Thank you very much.
Well done. And I was just imagining someone from the ATO reenacting that famous Monty Python skit. Bring out your dead. Anyway, moving on. Mr. Qureshi, what the hell is...
Don't start talking Monty Python. That shows our age, man. Don't go there.
Mr. Qureshi is now going to save the day and stop us from talking about Monty Python and talk about some reality with property and also the markets. Over to you, Sam.
Very good. Thank you, Adam. And welcome all the viewers. A few things to cover off on today. Firstly, just on the rates, most of the banks' rates have been holding steady, although we've just noticed that a bank has raised their fixed rates slightly. It's unclear if this is due to the bond market activity or profit taking by the bank. So we'll keep you in the loop of that as anything that will develop from that perspective. Obviously, we're looking for any emerging trends. One bank's not enough, but the fact that one bank is doing that just got our interest up. So basically, for our viewers' benefit, the current cheap rates that we're getting at the moment, they're very much driven by the fact that the Reserve Bank is holding the rates low and also participating in the 3 and a 5 year bond market. And in doing so, those rates are being held lower. Now, all eyes will be on the announcement at 2:30 tomorrow, post RBA's February meeting, because obviously that's going to give us quite a bit of information as to how they feel this first half of the year is going to go. The big news that I read just recently is that those loan deferrals, at the peak, it was about $200 billion worth of loan deferrals in place. But there's some encouraging signs that those values are coming down. As it stands right now, they're about $50 billion. Very small amount in business loans, a bigger amount in residential loans. So now this could be simply due to the fact that obviously the borrowers are getting back to normality, employment is somewhat getting back to normality, or it could just simply be that they're not meeting the requirements to stay on the deferrals. So I guess we need to understand a little bit more about that. And as I get more information in that regard, I will share that with you. Now, of course, the property market has started with an absolute big bang this year. And certainly over the last 12 months, it's done well. It's very much been driven by the regional areas. I thought I'll actually share with you a very quick update as to what that actually looks like. You would see that picture coming up. So home values by January, just the month that's just gone by. And as you can see, very much regional areas have been doing quite well. And also over the last 12 months, we see that most of those areas have been kicking along quite a lot. And we also see that Australia as a whole had a 3% increase over the last 12 months, 0.9 in January. And even places like Sydney actually had an increase in that period of time. Of course, it's been more challenging for Melbourne, but obviously that was in some ways expected because of the prolonged period of lockdown. Now, the key drivers of the property market in particular has always been the interest rates, obviously, employment and positive net migration to build that demand behind buying property. Of course, we're seeing at the moment that the cheap rates are driving the market higher as the key catalyst that's going on, as well as all the government assistance for the first home buyers and those building. So that's obviously has had a very big impact. And I guess as long as the employment is somewhat okay, but the rates are lower, we're going to see activities in that area along the way. Now, in terms of the auction rates, obviously they've been pretty high. They've been mainly in the high 80s in Victoria, New South Wales, ACT and South Australia. 51% in Queensland in last week. But that market is traditionally more of a private treaty market. So you're probably going to see less auctions anyway. Both New South Wales and Victoria hit 85% clearance rate. So we certainly have had a big start to the year from that perspective, which is quite amazing. I guess not a lot of people expected that as a starting point. Now, I've been asked a lot about, is there any updates on the proposed stamp duty changes in New South Wales and also the other states? At this point in time, there's no material update that I can provide to you. If it does become law, we will probably see a bit of an increase in the property values because a very large barrier to entry in purchasing properties is going to be removed. But as it stands right now, nothing is concrete. And I should also say that in all likelihood, any changes will be prospective, as in going forward, and not retrospective, because obviously it wouldn't be fair to people. Now, turning our eye onto the markets, well, what a week we've had. I'm sure you've heard lots about everything that's been going on. Firstly, the markets are down some 3.8% since a week ago, and even today they look to be a further weekend as well. So we certainly have a downward trajectory right now. You would have heard all about the David and Goliath war between the hedge fund managers and the retail investors in the US and its impact on some selected stocks. One of them is the Game Boy or GME for their stock code. That stock skyrocketed some 1,500% in a very short period of time, which was absolutely amazing. Now, of course, this is on the back of the investors staging a coup against the establishment, essentially, and pricing up the shares, which in fact made a hedge fund manager having to go and get bailed out to the tune of $2 billion. Again, amazing and very interesting times in the market. Of course, there's a lot of hype, and it's important to understand that be very mindful of how these things are done. And if you're ever thinking about getting involved, you need to be involved if you have some knowledge in this area. For example, for no other reason than sharing the same code of GME, a small mining company in Australia went up by 50% just because they had the same, right? So people on hype can do things that has no reason behind it. So be very mindful of that. As noted, RBA is going to announce their rates tomorrow, and we're going to be looking at the commentary that goes behind that to see what we should expect coming forward. There's still lots of volatility in the market. Of course, COVID is still around. Not everything is quite right as yet. And, we're yet to see anything positive come out of US in terms of their direction. And of course, things aren't absolutely rosy in China, and nor are the political relationships between Australia, China and US as yet. You would have also heard that just recently there's a fight between the government and Google, right? So there's a few fights happening everywhere at the moment. And this is around paying for new content, or basically news content from Google. And Google has made some threats to the Australian government as to how they're going to operate in our market. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. And I'm sure Microsoft is rubbing their hands in terms of being able to fill any void if anything was to occur there. Now, I was asked about Bitcoin a couple of weeks ago, I think by you, Lisa. It's been obviously very volatile, extremely volatile. And all I would say to you is that if you're going to be investing anything like that, you need to be very much mindful of the fact that it is quite risky, and it will go up and down significantly from one day to the next. I'm just going to share with you a history of Bitcoin's prices, if you can see. And as you can see, it has significant increases and many decreases along the way. And just into January, it actually hit over $40,000 per Bitcoin. And we've seen some significant ups and downs ever since. So it's definitely not for the faint-hearted. And again, the speculation that goes behind that means that, you should only be investing in things like this if you're willing to lose all your money. Now, there'll be a lot more to come out of electronic-based currencies and so on, because the reserve banks of different countries are looking to bring in some mechanisms behind those, and China being one of those that's going to start out soon. I'll update you as to how that goes and the impact it's going to have on the markets along the way. And that's the update for me this week.
Well done, Sam. Thank you very much. That graph is pretty strong stuff indeed. Well, Sam talks about Bitcoin and has given some pretty good warning there. I'm going to let you know that cash is back again. Cash is king. I get asked nearly every day to help businesses that are struggling with 4 things. Number 1, paying their tax debt, because now the tax office is actually starting to ring and say, hey, what are you doing about it? Why haven't you paid it? You've got arrears. Number 2, their banks, just like Sam has mentioned, it's gone down from 200 billion to 50 billion in deferrals. That's because banks are ringing up and saying, okay, time's up. What are we doing? What are you doing about the deferred money? You need to start paying your normal loans. Plus, we need to come to an arrangement about the arrears. The third thing is they have to pay a lot more of their wages because their JobKeeper amounts have reduced. So, cash is being drained out of the business, where before the subsidy was much higher. And of course, the fourth thing is, and probably the one that is impacting people the most, is the landlord. Now, the emergency provisions that were in place finished on 31 December. There was some speculation, would you believe, around about the 14th and 15th of January, that they were going to retrospectively extend the moratorium for landlords. It went nowhere. Why? Because everyone's on holidays. The politicians are all away, on their farms and swooning and crooning down in their electorates. They weren't going to come all the way back and start passing legislation that was going to extend it. It just wasn't going to happen. So they're the 4 big cash impacts on business. So what I thought I would do is I would come up with a quick and easy hints and tips of what's going on with cash flow. Number one, make it real. Actually open up your bank balance on the screen. And if you're using Xero, and I highly encourage most of you to do that, your Xero has a direct feed. But if it hasn't been reconciled, it's not going to quite work the way you want it to work. What you have in your bank account must equal what you've got in whatever accounting process you're using. It's got to balance. And if you're not balancing it regularly, you've got to make sure you're reconciling it. In the old days, back when Lisa and I were watching Monty Python, we would actually do what they call bank reconciliations. And we actually have to physically go down and look at the bank statement and check all the checks that were presented against all the deposits that hadn't been put in yet, et cetera, et cetera. Ian's smiling because he loves this stuff, right? Number two, make sure that your receivables are collected regularly. Nearly every single time I get asked to be involved with a business that's got some kind of obstacle it's going to go through, the receivables are like twice as long as what the terms say. Why? You're not a bank. Don't give your customers money. If they want to not pay on time, tell them to go and get a loan from the bank. Okay, it's pretty simple. Number three, make sure your payables are well managed and within time. It's amazing, you know, how much discounting there is available to people if they pay on time. Has anyone opened up their business electricity bill recently? There's 20% savings on electricity bills if you pay on time at the moment, if not more. So just be careful with that and use the inflow of money coming in from your really good collection processes to take advantage of some of these discounts, therefore increasing cash availability. Number four, if you can, with your really good customers, shorten your terms. And if you can't, try and think about ways that you can increase your margins. What we're trying to do here is encourage prompt payment of your invoices that are owed to you for your hard blood, sweat and tears. Number five, request extension of terms if you can with some of your really good suppliers. If you've got a really good relationship with them and you've got demonstrated capacity to pay, there's nothing wrong if you do have a cash flow shortage that you're foreseeing, you ask them for an extension of terms. And there are lots of different ways to negotiate those things. Obviously, talk to your accountant if you can, or alternatively, you can get in touch with BizDoctor and those things can happen. But my point is, if you're managing these 5 things really well, you'll typically know how your cash flow is going and when it's going to run out if you see a cash flow hole or a dip. And depending on your business, there are going to be times when you are going to have a cash flow dip. Some businesses are very seasonal. Some people have their businesses, particularly in the hospitality and tourism industry, are quite subjected to the tourist dollar. I've got lots of friends who have businesses in Port Macquarie, and they have just had a bumper January, absolutely bumper, the first time basically for a year. And but now they've got to manage all that and make sure their cash flow moving forward is really well done. Hope that's really helpful for everybody. And if you've got any questions, let me know. I'm going to turn to the panel now for any final questions before we let you go.
Adam, thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that. So if you don't mind putting that on our Facebook as well and LinkedIn, that's
absolutely
for our viewers. Sam just sent me a direct message earlier suggesting that you guys didn't see the slides, the full slides. So if I may, I just want to share that again, just to make sure our viewers, can you see this one now? Okay, so that was phase 1 that everybody saw. And just so that for the purposes of our recording, this is phase 2. And this is where I said, woo, adults age 50 to 59. will be in phase 2 with 15.8 million doses. And phase 2B is the balance of the adult population. So that's just a quick read of that. And then finally, thumbs up if you can see this again. Yes, can you see slide 3? This is when vaccinations will begin, which is late Feb. And there are 2 doses with an interval of 21 days. Again, I emphasize this is informational because employers actually need to be very mindful of the phases of this. And there will be definitely more discussions about compulsory or not compulsory, particularly for some sectors in the market. Just wanted to just cover that again. Thanks, Sam, for letting me know. I wasn't aware of it.
A quick question for you, Lisa, just in relation to this vaccination, if you know it or if you could report on it next week.
Sure.
So when someone has a vaccination and obviously they're employed, is there a period of time that they need to then stay home and, you know, employers have to give them leave for that, or what's the update on that?
Yeah, good question. I don't have handy information on that in terms of the efficacy of the vaccine and of course the impacts, whether people feel a bit ill or slightly off after the vaccination. But really the reality is that most of the discussions are revolving around the fact that the flu vaccination that is compulsory in certain age groups, in certain sectors, all has that impact or that effect of feeling slightly off. So it could very well be that would be the case, but more research to come and definitely more news on that. But I'll certainly, as I come up and get the information, as it becomes public, I'll make a point of reporting on that on Business Insights as a snapshot. Because, you know, the challenge is there's so much information about this, right? Mm-hmm. All over the news, it's quite repetitive. And I think this is a good portal for me to just summarize what's relevant that all of us as employers should know, and then just present that in little bite-sized pieces to digest. So yeah, thanks, Sam. I'll make note of that for sure.
Excellent. Now, thank you. All right, so that's basically it for us. You might notice that our former panel member, Bernard Tuamau, is not with us today. Bernard has decided to step back, and we really do value his contribution, but we're going to bring him back as a specialist presenter from time to time. And that actually goes for Rob Skeen as well. So this is an exciting year for Business Insights because we not only have got these fantastic presenters, panel experts that we're going to have every week, but what we're going to have is specialist panel invited guests to come on a regular basis. You'll hear more about this coming up. We're really excited about the format for 2021, and who knows, you know, before we know it, it's going to be December 2021. I'm going to leave you today with a fantastic quote, and which I just want to share with you all, and it should be there now. If you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. But if you schedule it, it's real. Tony Robbins, you're a master, mate. Absolutely. Have a great week, everyone. Hope you all have a fantastic time.
And everybody, if you have some suggestions that you want us to cover, put it on Facebook and we will find a specialist keynote presenter to do that for us as well. It's all about you. Thank you, everybody.